Sure. The Sweden-Norway initiative. I mean, the article is it from today? Yeah. £25 million is the total cost for it. Latest one use it.
Hello everybody. So we will be getting started here in a minute. I'm just closing some browser tabs here, just before we actually get started. So as you can see on screen, we have some stories, some of the news from the, recent, the last week. So we'll be covering all of that and, some other story. I need to actually put that in the notes here. And then we can get started. Okay, so I've got that story. It's a story that Piggis here will actually cover. Hello, Piggis?
Hello?
Hello. So we haven't started the recording yet, and we'll start in a minute, and then we can start with the proper intro. So, let me just, one moment here. Okay, so yeah, so let's get started. So hopefully I've got the right Firefox windows open here, so you can see my screen properly on stream. So let's get started now. So hey guys, welcome to the Sandro Linux Community Podcast. It is the 12th of January 2024. So we've got some interesting stories to cover today. So OpenAI has launched the ChatGPT store, so you can get extra add-ons for ChatGPT now. There's some telecom news from some global news, as well as some Swedish telecom news, as well as the UK stuff. So why don't we get into it with the first story? So we're gonna go with the AI section to start with this week, guys, because the AI story is the first one. The story in the title. So it's only right that we actually cover it first. So, custom GPT store has been announced. So now you can get custom, basically you can get custom add-ons for ChatGPT. So there's all sorts of stuff here. So you can try different GPTs, which is pretty cool. And yeah, if you want a more specialized, kind of specific experience with ChatGPT, then this new store could really offer you many different options. And for now, this will only be for paid customers. So you need OpenAI ChatGPT subscription. And so you need ChatGPT Plus, or the Teams version or the Enterprise version. So you also need this to create your own GPT, and of course this is closely linked in to that functionality, given that it allows you to access other users' custom GPTs. What are your thoughts on this, Piggis? This story. It seems rather interesting, allowing people to share their creations and allowing them to have their own variations on the ChatGPT AI. Okay, so Piggis does not want to comment on that story, and that makes sense. Yeah. So that is a story that's from the previous week. Let's delete that. Why don't we move right along to the mobile news? So this week, here's a Apple Insider story. So it's a little minor story when it comes to the iPhone. Apple has quietly increased the Find My limit to 32 items. So now, if you're using the latest version of Find My, you will now have 32 items, a maximum limit of 32 items. And previously, the maximum limit was 16, so that's double the previous limit. So clearly, Apple are allowing you to use more Apple devices with Find My, with this new update in iOS 16. So nobody had really noticed this before. However, apparently this was an update within iOS 16 that came with the software. So, of course, not that many people use 32 devices on their Apple account. And to be honest, if you have 32 devices linked up to your Apple ID, I do wonder how you'd actually be able to afford to have all those devices, unless you're some sort of like tech reviewer or something. But yeah, I guess this is a very limited use case, but now you can have all of the potential devices that you would want on your Apple ID. So yeah, so you can now track them all, which is cool. Now, of course, if you want to comment on any of these stories, guys, do remember that you can talk in the chat, or if you're watching this afterwards on YouTube or Library, you can comment down below. Now, so moving on to an Android 14 story here. So we're moving right along to the Android section. So Android 14 now has post-system update notifications, which are rolling out. So these notifications have rolled out to the Samsung Galaxy S23, Asus Zenfone 10, and the OnePlus 8 Pro. So if you have one of those phones, you can already get these notifications telling you some of the new updates on Android. And of course, it's nice for them to actually tell you what's really being improved within the OS, because many users just don't know the new capabilities of their device when they update Android version. So if you were wondering what kind of new features you get with updates, now Android will actually be able to tell you with this notification when you start your phone up after a new update. So this is pretty cool, and I think it's a better user experience. Of course, you can dismiss it if you don't need it. But for those who do want to know a bit more about the improvements to their phone, here's just another way of doing that. Do you have any thoughts on that, Piggis? No, okay. So let's see here. So Motorola is bringing the Razr 40 Ultra and Edge 40 Neo in peach fuzz to India. So apparently they have this color called peach fuzz on these phones, and yeah, you can now get these phones with this color in India. So the Indian telephone market is of course a very big one. A lot of consumers in India buying Android phones, and so if they want a bit of a more higher end offering here, then they can purchase the Razr 40 Ultra, and that apparently is currently priced at 69,000 rupees, so nearly 70,000 rupees in India, and that's around $845. So you can buy that from Motorola.in or Amazon. So there's also the Edge 40 Neo, which you can also buy, and that is slightly cheaper by quite a significant margin actually, with the dollar equivalent being $280. So in rupees, that's 22,999 rupees. So quite a bit there for a phone. However, of course, you know, if you're buying a Motorola, maybe, you know, it is quite a bit for a Motorola. However, it is a slightly better Motorola, because of course this phone does have better specs than some of their slightly lower end offerings. So, you know, if you have a really low budget, so let's say you can only afford about maybe you can only spend about $100 on a phone, then of course you won't be able to buy this phone. But if you've got a slightly bigger budget, then you can check out this phone if you're in India. And also, yeah, it's in other global markets as well. So, into the gaming news here. So this is quite a big one. So a leaked Sony DualSense V2 controller apparently has about twice the battery life of the previous controller. So this is big news if you are a PlayStation 5 user. So with this new DualSense controller, you will apparently have 12 hours of autonomy use with battery life compared to only 5 on the previous generation. So that is quite a jump, more than twice the battery life here. So if those figures actually do stand up when they are finally brought to market, then these new controllers will of course be quite an improvement on the existing DualSense controllers. And the DualSense controllers are already quite popular, so I reckon this will just make them even more popular. Now, on to the telecoms news. So, Pigus, are you here? Are you not here? You want to say something?
I'm here.
Cool. Do you want to cover the Swedish story before I cover the global stuff, or after I cover the global stuff?
Go ahead with the global stuff.
Okay, I'll start with the global stuff here. I should, yeah. So, this is not a story that should be in here. Let me just remove that quickly. So here's the story that I was just about to talk about. So FTP Retail is apparently, according to this story here, apparently FTP Retail is actually launching their own mobile network offering. So this is an MVNO. So this is only a virtual operator, of course. However, their retail side of the FTP business is actually launching a virtual network here. So it will be relying upon the existing telecoms of FTP Telecom. However, yeah, they will apparently be trying to integrate this into their existing services. So this is kind of a bit of corporate speak here, but this will basically mean that with this really big retailer in Vietnam actually launching this network, they will probably try and sell this network in a lot of their locations. So personally, I don't really know much about the Vietnamese telecom market, but a big retail player launching a network here is pretty big news because, of course, with such a big company launching a mobile network, of course, there'll be a lot of ordinary Vietnamese people that will sign up for this. A lot of people who just see it in a shop and they're like, let's get a SIM and, buy this specific brand. And yeah, this is just another operator if you live in Vietnam. So yeah, I added it to my notes here. They're the 5th MVNO operator in Vietnam. And just to clarify, for anybody unaware, an MVNO is a operator which relies on a different operator to actually deal for the actual telecoms infrastructure. So for example, here in the UK, giffgaff relies on O2. Tesco Mobile relies on O2. All these networks rely on these the big four networks here in the UK. However, of course, it's a different story in Vietnam. But there is this retail giant actually launching a network here. So, moving on to a story from apparently we're covering a story today from a Tongolese telecom provider. So Tongocom has secured about I think it's 36 billion ZOF. Is that like central? Ooh, I do not know what currency ZOF is. But anyway, it's around $60 million. Okay, yeah, so it's the West African CFA franc, so that's pegged to the euro. Anyway, but yeah, so apparently they've secured that amount of money, so 60 million US dollars from the IFC to upgrade its infrastructure. So this will of course be good news for Congolese people who will now be able to use this new mobile infrastructure once it's built. And of course, securing connection in poor countries is, of course, a good thing to do, because, of course, better internet connections and technology in general does boost economies, and it increases the amount of interconnection, which is always a good thing. So yeah. Now, of course, you might ask about the financing here. I don't want to get into the political aspect of, the IFC, providing the financing here, because we're really focusing on the technological aspect here. But yeah, apparently they have secured this money for their telecoms network. Now, Orange have consolidated in Romania. So, apparently, Orange has reached an agreement with the Romanian Ministry of Research, Innovation and Digitalization to merge Orange Romania SA with Orange ORO and Orange Romania Communications. So, this is pretty big news when it comes to Orange in Romania, because it just means that the business is slightly more consolidated here. So now, of course, they will, actually be one company. So there's some business stuff going on here, but yeah, it's just some news for people in Romania. Now, do you want to cover the Swedish story here now, Pigus?
Sure.
Okay. So do you want to talk about it? I'll pull it up on screen. So of course, most of my audience here do not know, Swedish, I'm guessing. But I don't. But Pigus does. So he'll be talking about this story. So do you want to take away?
Wow. So, Global Connect has received 12 million crowns from EU to build a new fiber connection between Norway and Sweden.
So will this? So this is probably going to increase internet speeds for connections between Norway and Sweden, right? I'm guessing there's still I'm guessing there's already quite a lot of infrastructure between the two countries, right? When it comes to fiber, is this just more infrastructure? But yeah.
Apparently, it's supposed to make it more attractive to establish companies and develop in this region.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so they've secured a bit of EU funding. Do you know where that EU funding is specifically from? Does this article specify it all? I don't know. I see the name of Germany mentioned once in this article, but I don't know. That's one of the only Swedish words I know. But
yeah, it just mentioned that the Global Connect network is connected through the Nordic countries and Germany.
Oh, okay. So Global Connected trying to connect some of that existing stuff through Scandinavia. That's cool.
So supposedly,
Yeah, sorry.
it's going to go between Stockholm, Luleå, to essentially through Stockholm and then through the north and then through Norway and
Oh,
back.
that's cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah,
So
so
this is also, they estimate that it will cost around 25 million crowns in total.
25 million crowns. So is that that's Swedish crowns, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 25 million crowns. Is that around right now? Around 2.5 million dollars? Um
Yeah.
yeah.
Roughly.
Yeah, so around 2.5 million dollars for that. Of course, that's just a rough mental thing here. Just divide by 10. That's usually about the exchange rate. But of course, there's fluctuations, so I might not be particularly bang on there. But yeah, yeah. So if you are in one of these Nordic countries, I guess that's good news. It's always good to see more internet fiber spreading. And of course, this is a bit of money from the EU to help that effort given to this Global Connect company. Now,
Hmm.
yeah, so is that all you wanted to talk about when it comes to that?
Yeah.
Cool. So now let's move on to the UK fiber broadband and cellular news. So Comex 2000, which is quite a big civil engineering firm here in the UK, is apparently expanding to Scotland with their rollout of fiber. So this will apparently create, according to them, 300 new jobs in the next 2 years. So they're advertising that a bit, and they are trying to expand the gigabit network throughout Scotland. So, of course, Scotland is a slightly less well served country when it comes to fibre. Unless you live in the central belt, it's less likely that you'll have, gigabit fibre. And of course, the rollout over some of the more rural bits of Scotland might not be so quick. However, now there's this civil engineering firm who are now expanding their scope to Scotland here. And yeah, this will be good news if you want fibre broadband and you live in Scotland. Now, moving on to the next story here. So, the BT group here in the UK has announced that they are apparently appointing this new CEO, Alison Kirkby. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, but yes. Sorry if I didn't. And apparently that will happen on the 1st of February 2024. So we'll have to see if she brings a new direction to BT. So under previous leadership, BT announced that they were actually going to be ditching the BT branding and mainly going forth with EE on the consumer side. Of course, on the enterprise side, they will be keeping the iconic BT branding. However, that was quite big news a few months ago. And now, of course, there's this new CEO that will be appointed and, will actually take the role very soon. So, yeah, some big news when it comes to BT, the BT group. So, yeah, so one of the biggest telecommunications companies here. Anyway, moving on to the next story here. So here's a Linux story. Unless you haven't, there's another Linux story as well. I'll load that up in a minute. But yeah, so Linux, the Linux kernel 6.5 has been brought to Ubuntu 22.04 users. So you can now use this version of the Linux kernel on that version of Ubuntu. So you can use this command here, sudo apt dist sudo apt dist sudo apt dist upgrade. So if you run this command, you can upgrade your distro, and you could install that kernel update. So, if you're running this version of Ubuntu LTS, then you can upgrade to this version of the kernel. However, it is not the latest version, although it does improve some features and bring some new features to the table. The latest release is actually the Linux kernel 6.7. So that is actually the latest version for Linux users. So if you actually want the cutting edge, then you will want to actually use a distro which is using this new version of the kernel. Now let's actually discuss that version of the kernel here. So here's the page here. So there's apparently this new update. So Linux kernel 6.7. So it apparently introduces initial Intel Lunar Lake support, and some network support for landlock, and a few other features. So I think you were looking a bit over this, weren't you, earlier, Pigus? Do you remember anything about these updates? Or not? You want to discuss this? Okay. Yeah, so there's some updates here. So apparently, what were you mentioning earlier? Was that from the kernel
It is about
6.5?
the
Or
6.5, yeah.
oh, it's about 6.5. Okay. So that faster, what was it? Faster parallel writing speed or something? What was it again?
Mm,
With a certain file system. I forget.
yeah.
But yeah, that
On ext4 you get faster parallel direct IO overrides.
that's cool. That's
Uh-huh.
yeah, totally understand what that one means. But yeah, that is cool for people running that version. However, with this newer release, you get some new updates, some mainly just new support for different hardware platforms here. And yeah, it's a little update here, and yeah, if you want to update, you can. However, if your device already works, maybe you want to wait a bit.
It's better for OLED and LCD screens.
Oh, okay, cool.
Good, yeah.
That's a nice feature.
The kernel enables AMD FreeSync by default now.
Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, FreeSync is definitely a feature you want enabled if you can. Um,
Yeah, to avoid screen tearing and stuff.
yeah, it's a pretty cool feature for AMD devices. So yeah, overall FreeSync being enabled by default, pretty cool. And yeah. Anyway, moving on to the miscellaneous news, the spontaneous news. So, of course, this is a very mixed section here. So, we're covering today quite a few layoffs, which is quite sad to be honest. A lot of layoffs in the tech industry recently. So, Instagram announced they were cutting 60 jobs, effectively removing a layer of management. So they say Meta says that this is the year of efficiency. Those are the words of Mark Zuckerberg. And yeah, apparently this is Instagram's new strategy of trying to use less workers to, of course, run the company. And yeah, we'll have to see how this goes, having less people working there. And yeah, overall, this doesn't seem to. This seems to be quite a big layoff, to be honest. Cutting 60 jobs. But we have seen this quite recently. A lot of layoffs in the tech industry as it kind of cools down, and after such a big bunch of years when it came to 2020 and 2021 being really big years for tech, and now of course we're seeing a lot of layoffs. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus? Also, hello, Sylvana's husband. I see you in the chat there. So yes, yeah. So why don't we go on to the next story? Another sad one here. So yeah. So apparently, Twitch has laid off over 500 people in a week. So apparently they said that they aren't profitable. So that's what the CEO said after they announced this week that they were laying off 500 people. So of course this is really sad for the employees of Twitch if you were laid off. This is really bad news. And of course, Twitch isn't that profitable as businesses go. They run into controversy after controversy. And of course, you can kind of see why they might end up not being profitable and having to lay off people. However, it's sad nonetheless that they have to resort to this, and such drastic mass layoffs are, a sign that, yeah, the tech industry is experiencing a bit of a slump. However, of course, there are always booms in the tech industries and busts. So yeah, we'll just have to see where the kind of tech industry goes when it comes to employment. Do you have any thoughts, Pigus?
Oh.
Yeah, tech companies were hiring a lot in 2020 and 2021. Offering, pretty good stuff to employees. But yeah, there's been quite a kind of bust in the tech industry recently. Sort of, just a bit of a cooling down, I suppose. Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the next story here. A bit of a creepy one here. So apparently you'll now be required to actually submit a face scan if you want to use the Apple Vision Pro. So now you will apparently need a face scan according to this code in the App Store app. So it says that you may have to scan your face to be able to get the Apple Vision Pro, excuse me. And yeah, so apparently the pre-orders begin on January the 19th, and customers will have to order sight unseen. Okay, sure. And yeah, apparently, you just have to pre-order these, and you'll get them shipped if you're part of the limited 60,000 unit shipments. So quite limited there. Although I am really doubting how many people will buy this product. However, there's a lot of Apple fans out there willing to pay the £3,500 dollar price, and yeah, overall, we'll just have to wait and see how popular this is. Now, moving on to the next story here. So, this is a bad story for those involved with Framework. So, apparently, they fell victim to a social engineering attack, and they have been hacked. So, this is quite a big manufacturer at this point, quite a big laptop maker, I mean, and yeah, they have been doing these modular laptops, kind of innovating quite a bit in the industry, with these modular devices that allow you to swap components in and out, and allow you to have a lot more control over your hardware, a lot more like how you could control your desktop hardware, which is pretty nice. A lot of people don't use laptops because they're really hard to repair, and you can't really replace stuff easily. A lot of stuff is soldered on, and a lot of laptops, to make them nice and thin and to also make them less repairable. However, Framework takes the kind of opposite attitude, allowing you to take apart your computer and take different bits out of the computer. And of course, with their modular design, you can actually order it bare bones without a lot of the components already in it. So that's pretty cool. However, they've apparently been hacked. So this is pretty bad news if you are a customer of theirs. Because yeah, you don't really want your information out there. However, according to a bleeping computer report, yeah, this might actually, and a framework user forum post, yeah, there might be actually quite a few people's information out there, and yeah, apparently they actually stole a spreadsheet with the names, addresses, and outstanding balances of customers. So that's a really big breach, and the fact that they were keeping this all in a spreadsheet, not the best security, but oh well. That might be how the customer handles it. Also, hello, hello, Abby, Albie. Yeah. So Grubhub. What about Grubhub? What has the latest? What's the latest stuff to do with Grubhub been? Because they're quite a big company. Anyway. Yeah, so anyway, continuing on with the framework story while we give the time to the person on stream to respond. So yeah, what do you think about this, Piggis? It's quite big news for framework customers. Quite bad news.
It is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, so going back to what Ollie was. Yeah, so anyway. Yeah, so that's cool. But yeah, so we're pretty much at the end now. Unless the person on stream wants to comment at all. The person in the comments, somebody commented Grubhub. I don't know why they commented that. I hope you don't mean anything, inappropriate. But yeah, I don't know why somebody has messaged Grubhub. It's a delivery service. I don't know. Do you see any stories to do with Grubhub, Pigus, that you could think of?
No.
No, maybe somebody just messaged it for the crack, but sure, all right. If you did, sure, cool, like. But yeah. Anyway, so sorry, I forgot to respond to you, All Star. So apparently your Wi-Fi was terrible in Scotland. So yeah, so Scotland, doesn't always have the best Wi-Fi infrastructure, not compared to some places. Of course, there are kind of countries that really lead in Wi-Fi, rollout. Like South Korea for quite a while had quite good Wi-Fi infrastructure. It was quite renowned for having fast speeds, the fastest in the world for a bit. I don't know whether that's still the case, but yeah, of course, Scotland, in some bits of Scotland, the speeds aren't the best. However, there has been some rollout of more broadband in Scotland, so you can get some faster fibre broadband if you're up in Scotland. So yeah, that's it's good news to hear that there'll be wider fibre rollout in Scotland. So if you want those fast gigabit speeds and you don't live in like Edinburgh or maybe Glasgow, then this will be good news. So yeah, do you have any other stories that you want to talk about, Piggis? Anything else you want to talk about? Yeah, so unless you want to clarify LB, we'll end the stream here. Anyway, thank you guys for watching once again. Thank you All-Star for the comment. Thank you Albie for the comment. And also thank you Sylvana's husband for the comment. So yes. So thank you all. I will see you guys in a future podcast next week, hopefully. I'll be coming out with some content, I think, over the weekend. So watch out for that. Maybe a review of EE. Maybe a different video. Who knows? But yeah, watch the channel for that. Maybe that'll come out on Saturday or Sunday. And an edited version of the show will be on my YouTube and LBRY channel. So you can check it out on those once it's been uploaded. So yeah, thank you once again for watching. You can check out the Discord on sandrolinux.com/discord. And you can pretty much do that with all of my different social links. So for library, for YouTube, and yeah, overall, thank you for watching, and goodbye. You want to say goodbye, Piggis?